So good morning everyone, and welcome to this brief presentation on how to answer the 6 types of exam question in the AQA's A-level paper 7192/1 Education with Theory and Methods. This is what the paper looks like. This is a screenshot of the 2017 paper. The date for the 2018 paper is not the 8th of June, it is Tuesday the 5th of June. And if you're watching this from 2019, you might want to check the dates because they're probably going to be even earlier. A quick overview of the paper. It's a 2-hour paper, total of 80 marks. It's write-in, so if there's a gap, you basically write in it after the questions. There's 6 questions in total, and you have about 1.5 minutes per mark. So you get 4 questions for education, 1 for methods in context, and 1 for theory and methods. That's how it's broken down. So just to move on to the 4 and 6 mark outline questions, it's basically the same technique for the 4 and 6 mark outline questions. So an outline question could ask you for 2 ways, reasons why, criticisms, consequences of, maybe. A 4 mark will ask you 2 ways, etc. A 6 mark will ask you 3 ways, and these are basically 1+1 questions. So here's an example of how the question will look in the exam paper and the mark scheme, and you can see from the mark scheme it really is 1+1. And for this I've just cut and paste the material factor here is in red, and the explanation is in grey, so 1+1 for these particular questions. And a more complex example in this case for the 6 mark question, which is basically 3 times 1+1 for a 6 mark rather than 2 times 1+1 for the 4 mark. On to the 10 mark applying from the item and analyse questions. So for this you need to identify the hooks in the item first of all, and both of your points should come from the item. Both of your reasons, ways, consequences, criticisms, whatever you're being asked to do should come from the item. So using the example provided from the specimen paper, I've highlighted the hooks in the item, and these should be featuring in both of your points. So just a reminder of the mark scheme. You can get marks for evaluation, but this is mainly an analysis question. And this is an example of a full mark answer from the AQA specimen paper 2015, I think this one is, might be 16. And I've just highlighted the points taken from the item, or underlined them rather, and you can see that this is a good full developed answer. 30 mark essays. I imagine you've been practicing these all year, so not very much to say. There's some examples of classic 30 markers. Specimen 2015, evaluate the view that the main role of the education system is to serve the needs of the economy. And this is a top mark band from the mark scheme, and basically you need sound conceptually detailed knowledge, and you must use everything in the item, and you must conclude to get into the top mark band. So my general hint for writing 30 mark essays, you can go back to that later. This is my general structure: make a point, explain, expand, criticise, repeat 3 to 5 times, do some overall evaluations, and conclude. So here's my suggested plan for the question from the specimen paper. 1 point on functionalism and evaluate, then Marxism, evaluate, new right, vocationalism, overall evaluations, and conclude. I think methods in context questions are potentially the most difficult. My advice is to write it like a methods question and use the item as much as possible. So I've just underlined some of the things that you might pick up on from the item to show you how much is in there. There is a lot of stuff. And here's the top 2 mark bands. Basically, the more specifically you apply the method to the topic, the faster you go up the mark bands, or the more likely you are to progress up the mark bands. What I find most interesting is that you can get 12, this is the middle mark band, just by writing a good methods essay loosely applied to the study of education rather than the topic under investigation. And here's an example taken from the AQA's material of a band 3, band 4 and band 5 answer. To my mind, the last one is the only band 5, but you can look at that in your own time if you replay this presentation. So just a reminder of my strategy: get the methods right first, get 12 in the bag, for the middle mark band, then use the hooks in the item to discuss and develop those points and relate the method to the topic. Right, just a final quick word on the outline and explain theory and methods question. Here's some guidance. Basically, for the no item outline and explain 10-mark questions, there is no marks, or there are no marks for evaluation, only for analysis and development. So these can be theory and or methods questions. So there's 3 possible classic examples. The last one's a bit nasty. And here's just an example of what I think would top mark band for a classic example of a theory and methods 10-mark question: positivism and quantitative research methods. So if there are any questions, I'm aware that was quite fast and I've talked quite quickly, but I wanted to keep it under 6 minutes and I've just about done that. So any questions, just please type them in the box below. Thanks for listening.